what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I was supposed to be obviously getting dressed. I couldn't even get dressed. And all I wanted to do was and think, my head, all it could think was, I can't live like this. I can't live like this. I couldn't even open the window to jump out head first. That's how I felt. I really wanted to die. That memory is really vivid. I really wanted to die. We go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, you've got this, you've got IBS, oh, you've got arthritis. Do you know it's the biggest load of bull? It's absolute rubbish. Every single thing they've stuck a label on to give you a medicine for is a symptom. They're all symptoms. They're not what's wrong with you. They're all symptoms, and they're all symptoms of one underlying issue: what we're eating.
Anita, how did you find Carnivore?
Hello, Dave. I found it by Bob Briggs. Butter Bob, butter makes your pants fall off, and that was somewhere round about 2016, about 7 years ago. The only thing is, when I found it, I was going through a lot of issues. I'd already changed my diet from taking sugar out, and I'd already discovered, in fact, yeah, I'd also just discovered that milk and cheese were the bane of my life, in as much as hay fever. I've had 30 years or so just chronic hay fever, really bad, and other issues as well. And with having a bad eye, also more sinus issues than probably normal. So yeah, so Butter Bob's, in a way, he saved my life, because although I followed him, he said he was keto. He didn't say he was carnivore. Lovely man, and but he was carnivore basically. And I realised that later on in time, and I followed him for a while. I watched all his videos, followed him, but I did add a few veggies. And although I wasn't overweight as such, I was overweight. I was probably about 10 stone when I first started my sugar journey, and it was all falling away. And I eventually actually was 8 stone. And a few of my family and friends were saying, "You're too skinny, Nita." But I actually felt brilliant. So I followed Butter Bob for a while, and I followed all his videos, and they were very, very supportive. But I was having veggies, just a few greens. And I did that for quite a while. And as time went on, I went off the rails, like a lot of people do. You go off the rails. And I started bringing in sort of like, I don't know, processed foods and things like that into my diet, because of the way I was working as well. We had a microwave at work, and I was on my feet all day. And so I even got to the point where I was basically vegetarian, and even went vegan for a short spell as time was going on. And anyway, during that time, I lost I left my job. I'd outgrown it basically, and I went self-employed as a gardener. And I was having so many pains while I was at work, because it was one of these long, thin garden centres that I worked at. I felt like a dog on a dog run, to be honest. And I was having all these joint pains. I had the plantar fasciitis had gone when I cut out the sugar. That was that policeman's heel, where you're plodding along and it absolutely hurts. That went away when I stopped the sugar, and so did a lot of the other pains. But it's like I hadn't mentally caught up with the physical, if you know what I mean, on the first wave of doing Butter Bob. And I carried on, and I ended up on to being vegan for a short spell. And I was basically about 8 stone. And by the time I was self-employed, I was roughly round about 8.5 stone, which I think 8.5 stone is something like 154 pounds. So I was round about there. So I was a good, healthy weight. I was quite strong. I was working well on my own, doing, really quite happy. And then I started having all these more joint pains. I'd obviously had lots of issues previous to that that I hadn't even acknowledged that I had. Somebody had told me I had IBS, and I didn't appreciate that I actually did, even though I'd looked up the symptoms and things. I'd had fibroids, which was confirmed, and that had given me a really hard time. I had really dry, itchy skin, seborrheic dermatitis. I'd been told I was when I was a child that I had, and I was always itching and always scratching, and oh, and so basically all my joints were hurting. My fingers were starting to twist, and you can see a little bit. They're not so bad. Oops, where'd it go? They're a bit twisted here and there. They started going a bit misshapen, and my thumbs were misshapen a bit and quite bulging a bit, and so everything was getting worse. And then one night I went to bed, and within a few moments I had all this nerve pain running down my arms, both arms. And every time I laid down, after a few moments, as I was nodding off to sleep, I'd get this nerve pain. It was really bad. It was excruciating as time went on. And I was telling my friends, because when I was doing my sugar-free, I told my friends, and they were sort of suggesting different ways of doing my pillars and things like that. And I was doing all these different ways of trying to lay and go to bed, and not have this happen, but it didn't work very well. And I had a very stiff neck. I'd always noticed when I came out of the garden centre that I was always aching and grating on my neck. And this is what was obviously the problem with it. Anyway, this nerve issue carried on. It started getting worse and worse, and I was getting very little sleep. You can imagine every time I laid down, within a few moments, I was getting even scared to go to sleep, to be honest, scared to go to bed. And I was sitting up sometimes. I was putting my bed up and things like that. And this pain was horrendous. And I only needed to sit up for a few minutes, and it started dissipating, and then it'd go. And then, so I thought, well, I'm going to have to see somebody, because I've tried to stay away from doctors most of the time, because I find you tell the receptionist what you want, what's wrong with you, because they ask you, they're very nosy. They've set the doctor up with what you're coming for. He's got the computer set up, deciding what tablets are you taking. And then you've only got 5 minutes in the room. And so they're after just giving you a prescription, but I don't want a prescription. I want to know what's wrong. But I always come out there feeling like, oh, it's your age or whatever. That's the stuff they come out with. So anyway, I decided I wasn't going to the doctor. I went to an osteopath. And the reason I went to the osteopath first was I knew him, but I also knew that about 10 years earlier, maybe a bit less than that, I'd had some tingling down one arm, and it was actually the right side, which seems to be the side that I'm most affected. And I'd had five sessions with him, and it went away, and it never raised its ugly head till this time that I'm talking about. And this time I'm talking about was round about 2018. And anyway, so this pain keeps coming, and I decided I'll go to the osteopath. I went to him, and the first thing he came out with, oh, it might be thoracic outlet, saying that there's maybe a nerve trapped in your shoulder. It was a guess. So he's there giving me my therapies, and I had basically 6 weeks of that. It didn't make much difference, to be honest. And so then I thought, right, I'll go to a chiropractor. I'm not very good when somebody gives me exercises to do, and to do it on my own, because I'm basically on my own, because my sons and my grandsons are at different times living with me. At the minute I've got a son and grandkids. So a lot of time I'm on my own, and I'm not very good at following a bunch of instructions and having to do it daily or whatever. So I thought, I'm not going to the doctor for a physio thing, because that's what they do. They give you a sheet of paper, some exercises, and this is what you do. And so I went to a chiropractor, and I paid every week a session at the chiropractor, and I did that for about 6 months. So now we're getting to quite late 2018. And being a gardener, I can't afford private care during the winter months because I've literally saved every penny to last me the winter because I'm always considering the weather. So anyway, I didn't get any much relief from the chiropractor. A little bit of strength back in my arms because my arms, I was getting very weak. This was seriously affecting my strength. It was also affecting my mental health. When I had my eye issue, which is a blocked air duct, after 7 years of that, being given prescriptions for conjunctivitis, I'd eventually sat in front of a doctor, all absolutely depressed, saying, "You can't just get conjunctivitis for 7 years in one eye." This is how stupid our doctors are. Honestly, some of our doctors are this daft. And I said, "You can't." I said, "If you asked me to draw my face, all I would do is draw my eye." I said, "That is how I feel." And after that, I ended up with 4 different operations. But the same with this really was, it was taking over my life. And then I went through the winter and I still continued with this. And then eventually I'd got up one morning with all the pain running down my arms. And I joke you not, it didn't go. It stayed. And it was excruciating. And it didn't go. And I was like a headless chicken running around my room. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I was supposed to be obviously getting dressed. I couldn't even get dressed. And all I wanted to do was and think, my head, all it could think was, I can't live like this. I can't live like this. I couldn't even open the window to jump out head first. That's how I felt. I really wanted to die. That memory is really vivid. I really wanted to die. And I kept moving around. And after a while, it dissipated, but it was there. And it was there all day. And it wouldn't go away. And then eventually, around about tea time, it actually went. And that was it. I said, right, all right, I'm going to see the doctor. And by now we're getting into sort of, I would say, spring. And I went to the doctor and I didn't go to the doctor. No, I didn't. I carried on a bit longer. And it wasn't until I was having my bedroom decorated. That's this room. My twins' grandsons are in at the minute. I gave them it to use. I just had this decorated, but I didn't have a bed. I only had a single mattress for now, and what have you, because I'd given my beds to my sons. Anyway, so I put the mattress on the floor, and for a few nights I'd laid on the mattress on the floor in this lovely room, and I was so chuffed because it was just so nice. And then I turned over. I was facing the window, and I turned over, and all of a sudden I didn't wake up to my arms. Oh no, I woke up to the whole room turning over as if I was put in a tumble dryer. And I'm like, what the heck? Oh my God. It took me quite a while to sort of stop the world spinning. I managed almost holding my head up and holding it in place to try and sit up. I couldn't do anything. I was like, what? Anyway, I got me mobile phone out and I'm looking on Google, because you Google a lot of things for your health when you've had lots of issues. We get like this, don't we? And especially when you don't trust doctors. Anyway, so then what happened was I'd looked at what could cause this. And so one of the things I was reading, and it's quite ironic, it comes up later, is that I'd read about crystals in your ear holes. So I thought, okay. And I'd read that there's an epi maneuver. So I thought, well, I'm good. I've got no choice about this anyway, because of what's happened. I was dizzy. I couldn't get the dizziness away. I crawled on my bum down the stairs. And I literally was holding my head to try and stand up. And I sat on the sofa. I phoned up the National Health Line, because you can't just phone your doctor. I didn't know what to do. And I was scared. I was very scared. And then I phoned them and they told me that they'd get through to the doctor. I managed to get to the doctor. It had calmed down a little bit. And I literally managed to get to the doctor. I walked. I couldn't drive. I walked there and I was literally holding my head up as I was walking. I didn't have taxi money, nothing. You know, I was pretty on the edge of my money as far as things to go. So then I got to the doctor's and I had to sit and wait like you do, 40 minutes. Gets in there and all she did was look at me, did a feel of the neck, looked in my ears, and she says, oh, well, she didn't say anything. She just gave me some Bentonase, which was a histamine that they'd given for my son, for my brother. Sorry, not my son, my brother, for his Meniere's disease. And personally, I believe his Meniere's disease is gluten. Anyway, so she gives me this Bentonase and I goes home and I didn't really have any sort of diagnosis, nothing, just gives me this Bentonase. So the next day, when I went to bed, the nerve pain didn't stop, didn't happen again. So but the dizziness was still there and she said it would take a few days for the medication to work. Anyway, I didn't get any more nerve pain. And I thought, this is strange, this. It's gone upwards. Whatever it is, it's gone upwards. It's not down anymore. So the next day I went to the doctor again. I made another appointment and I saw a different doctor. And it was a nice guy, but he never said a word. All he did was nod his head. And I sat to him and I said, I was almost shaking my head, to be honest, even though it was dizzy. Don't you think it's odd? This is what I kept saying. Don't you think it's odd that it's not running down my arms and it's gone upwards? And he's looking at me and he has a little feel of my neck again and he goes and sits down. And I said, don't you think it's odd? And then he sort of nodded, yes. And he actually said, yes, I do. And then he said, what do you want? I said, my auntie died of a brain tumour. I said, and nobody diagnosed it till the last minute. I said, my sister-in-law came and visited me all the way from Derby and drove all the way back and collapsed on the floor with a brain tumour. Honestly, and I said, she had an emergency. I says, have I got a brain tumour or something? I says, could I have an MRI? Anyway, he put me in for 4 MRIs. There was my brain, me both ears and my neck. Well, I had to wait. This was round about May, June when this happened of 2018 when he put me in for the MRI. So that's the time frame roughly by then.
Sorry, 2018 or 2019?
2018.
Okay.
Hang on, was it 2018? It would be it'd be 2018. Yeah, it would, because 2019 was like another journey. So 2018, he put me into that, and then I didn't get the results for about a couple of months. They're so slow. Anyway, so I goes to see the next doctor for the results. Nothing. He says nothing. All he talks about is gubbins in my ears and that I need my ears syringing, which is the biggest load of bull. So about a month or so later, of course, I'm keeping myself stocked with this Bentonase because every so often I'm weaning myself off it, and then after a few days I go dizzy again. So then I go to the last doctor with number 4, and she suggests the epi maneuver. You see, this epi maneuver that I'd said early on. Well, by then I'd already sussed it isn't anything to do with this. And suddenly she comes, oh, you've had an MRI scan. Oh, it's come up with some bone spurs on your neck, on your neck bit. So it's obviously here somewhere. And so when she suggested this epi maneuver, I said, no, I don't want the epi maneuver. I said, I've already sussed it's not that. Then, of course, she tells me it's bone spurs. So that's what's creating this. And obviously it's inflammation that's creating the actual nerve pain and stuff. So she tells me that. And so then she says, oh, there's an operation. I said there's an operation in there because I've done lots of homework, as you do. And she's like, oh, yeah. And I said, it's dangerous, isn't it? And she says, well, yeah, it is a bit. It's risky. And then she says, oh, I can get you in touch with a neurologist. So I left her on a cliff, basically, because I didn't want to make a decision. I thought, I'm not happy. This thing's not right. So then I went home and I carried on with the Betanays a bit. And then I got in where I'd gone through winter and I just started working. And one of my customers said to me, "Oh, you ought to have that operation, Nita. You know, I've had it on my back and I'm so glad, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, so my head was trying to come to terms with the idea that I could have this operation, but I could still end up, can't use my arms and legs and anything else. But this was beginning of 2019, round about February. And then I ate something. I was really naughty and I ate 3 vegetable pancake rolls for my dinner. I was feeling very lazy, but I wasn't hurting or anything. My neck wasn't stiff, nothing. I ate 3 veggie rolls and I ate a cheesecake, which was naughty, but I could just get away with a bit of milk in winter because it wasn't hay fever season. And I was feeling sorry for myself and it was comfort. And then I went and had a seconds. So I was being a real pig. I went and had seconds of this cheesecake. I was being such a pig. And I sat there feeling really good. And then all of a sudden, I was in agony. It was starting to run down my arms. The nerve pain suddenly shot down my arms. And I'm sat there with my arms stretched out, just almost in tears, saying to myself, this doesn't usually happen in the day. And that's all I could say. This doesn't usually happen in the day. And I was totally bewildered, confused. What's going on? And then I stopped in my tracks, in my brain, and I went straight in the kitchen, took the wrappers out the bin and examined them. And I kept seeing this word, gluten. This was the first part of my big journey, real big journey. So I went and watched all these anecdotal stuff on gluten. I watched some doctors on gluten. So I took all the gluten out of my diet and I literally went gluten-free for almost a year. And I bought all my winter store thinking like gluten-free as well, because I always have like a winter store to survive on. And everything was gluten-free. That was my head. And then I started feeling like I'd got to about 9 stone. I'd started increasing weight and I was still watching stuff. And I suddenly stopped in my tracks round about end of December 2019? Yeah, it would have been 2019. And I said to myself, this is no good. The best time in my life, the very best time in my life was Butter Bob. And I went straight back to Butter Bob and I watched every single video, Bob Briggs, Butter Bob. And then from Butter Bob came the word carnivore. By then I was starting to see Paul Mason and Ken Berry, and I followed all of them, Professor Tim Noakes, Bart Kay, Sean Baker, just loads of them. Phelps, is it David Phelps? Just loads of them. Michaela Peterson and Jordan Peterson, just followed loads of them. And particularly, the thing is with me as well is I'm very studious, constantly reading stuff. If somebody, it's like I've been following Professor Seyfried, Thomas Seyfried. If somebody says a word and I don't understand it, I'm straight in finding out what it means. If they're talking about something, I'll go looking for stuff. I like the sciencey stuff. I understand a lot of the lingo simply because I've been well into this, and I'm very good at learning these things with being horticulture, because I'm not sort of like just a gardener. I've actually done horticulture, studied horticulture. So I'm quite, all these big long words and things, they don't scare me. So I just crack on with it. And so, of course, as soon as I started Carnivore, where I'd got rid of a lot of the joint pains and stuff and everything, doing the gluten-free, suddenly everything changed. It was like the most massive game changer in my life, because that literally was the end of 2019. And we were just going into the 2020 as well, where it was the lockdown. Well, as much as I was affected for family and things, I wasn't, and obviously going in the shops, the mask treatment, which was a lot of rubbish. Anyway, the thing was, I still worked. I worked all the way through it because I was outside and I just didn't have contact the same with my customers. I was watching them go downwards, to be honest. But anyway, putting that aside, I just carried on the carnivore. The only thing with me is I have two addictions. They've gone, but I have two addictions. One is chocolate, and I love Terry's chocolate orange. And I've had to use the dark chocolate to. I'm not joking. I've said I'm not having chocolate, and it's not been in the house. I'm not having chocolate, and for some reason, I've got in the car, gone around the corner shop, grabbed me Terry's thingy, and then I've set it up, waiting for me time when I have it, and then I'll go a few days. I'm not having chocolate, and I've gone and done the same, and I've had to analyze why do I do that, and I analysed to the point that I thought, right, I almost can see that I'm setting me. I put it there. I've had my tea and everything. I put the computer on. It's almost like a date, and I've realised it's like a date. So I decided I'm not having it anymore. And when I last got it, I actually bought some dark chocolate. And I said, right, when I've finished that chocolate, I'm going to have the dark chocolate. And I didn't eat all the dark chocolate. I had it in 2 sittings. But after that, I've not craved chocolate at all. It's almost like that's the way I can put a break on. If I suddenly start doing it, because it's such an addiction with me, that I have to have dark chocolate and it stops me doing it. And then my other addiction is coffee. And I'm terrible because every hour when I'm working, I get a coffee off my customers. I have 2 of the most lovely customers who come running out with a coffee for me when I arrive as well. And I'm usually, if they're the first job in the morning, I've had a coffee before I set off to work. And so I'm terrible with coffee. So anyway, I decided, right, I'm going to stop my coffee. And what I did though was I didn't stop it totally. I went on to decaf. So I stopped it, and it was actually literally over Christmas I stopped the coffee. And what I decided was I'm not having withdrawal symptoms, which is your vascular system in your brain contracting and what have you and expanding when you stop coffee. It's the change in your brain. So I thought, right, I'm not going to have this happen to me while it's Christmas. So as soon as I get a headache, I'll stop. I'll have a coffee, and I managed it on 1 coffee a day. And I decided I'd had two days of 1 coffee, and each time it got later in the day when I needed that coffee before as the headache was coming. And then on the last day, I could have done without it, except I knew I was going on New Year's Eve on a function. And I was just getting a headache because I was nearly about to go out the door. So I went and had a quick coffee, just so I'd survive the night with the loud band and everything. So I stopped that. But I've basically got rid of every single ache and pain in my body from going carnivore. The dizziness went as soon as I went gluten-free on that first year that I didn't waste because it's a learning. I think if you go, even if you go off the rails, I think all the times you go off the rails, when you've got something to remember, like I did the first time with Bob Briggs, you've got something to remember that you did it right. There was a point where you did it right. And yeah, you've gone stupid. You've gone off track. But there was a point when it was right and things was perfect or felt perfect to what they've ever felt before. So that's what I've always had, that knowing there's a straight line I can get back onto, even if I've gone all wiggly. And so I've just found that everything, my joints haven't got any worse. My thumbs and my strength has just went. I mean, I'm so strong compared to what I was, and my endurance, I can go all day and not stop. I keep feeling like I used to run a lot when I was younger, even into my 40s. I was running, and I used to run a lot, and I feel like I want to run. I feel like I want to sprint because I used to sprint and I used to do middle distance running. I used to do loads of walking with my kids on my shoulders. on these like organised walks and things, and I feel like I can run. I just want to go, and I don't know if I'm too old to be honest, but I just want to fly, and I can garden all day, and I can do all sorts of jobs. At one time, I couldn't do press ups. Now I don't do much in the way of press ups. Don't get me wrong, I don't. But at one time, I couldn't do press ups because one of my wrists that I broke when I was a kid, that was, climbing where I shouldn't do. And I always had a weakness, like, that bone on bone feeling. I always had this weakness on it. And so I could never do that. And then when I went carnivore, properly carnivore, I found after a little while, I could actually rest on that hand flat out where I never could before. And not only that, when I'm working, I have to go under bushes and weed a bit. And I literally, from the edge of a border, sort of crawl out on my hands, and I'm almost in basically a press up position. And I'm on one arm, weeding with one arm, and then I swap and I'm weeding with the other arm. And another thing I do, when I used to do weeding, when I first started the gardening, even at home, I always used kneeling boards. And so I'd always be on my knees praying, basically doing the weeding. And I'd be hours like that. And it didn't bother me at all. But when it got near this Christmas, I realised something. My boards had only come out once. I've been doing like Asian squat and squatting for hours, where I couldn't do that before. Within 10 minutes of doing that, on me sort of like just crouching, I would be getting my boards out because my legs would be aching. But what I found was round about December, I thought, I haven't had my boards out for about 3 weeks. And the only garden I take them out is where they've got this very tight mat all over the border, and you have to really get stuck in and around other plants. And that's the only time I take it out. So now I can do 2, 3, 4 hours literally doing like an Asian squat or a squat where I just use one foot and just gently have my knee resting on it, but not leaning on it. And I'll do that for hours. And I couldn't do that at all before, 10 minutes and I was done. I'd had to, what have you. I get no backache. I can dig for England. My favourite little thing is I could if they went to war and needed someone to dig the trenches, I could dig the trenches for them. Honestly, I can just go away, dig for England forever. And I have no issue whatsoever. Some of the, I've had customers say, "Can you do it?" And you're like, "Of course I can." I do hedges as well. I do, because I'm a gardener. I do everything the blokes do. I just don't have a great big chainsaw. I don't cut trees down, only little ones. But I was doing a hedge one day, and I was up a ladder doing this quite a tall hedge and what have you. And a fella come past. He says, "You put a lot of young'uns to shame." He says, "I've sat and watched you for the last near half hour while I was waiting for my kid for school." He says, "You'd put them to shame." He says, "I can't believe you've just done that." And I'm like, when I look at some of the things I do, I'll be honest with you, I can't believe I do that, So, yeah, so for me, carnivore has absolutely changed my life. And I don't look at it as a diet. It's a lifestyle, and it's dead easy. It's a no-brainer. And for eating patterns and things is I don't have a routine because sometimes I work and sometimes I don't. If I'm working, I tend to have a breakfast, and it's very early on. It's usually about 7. So I'll have my breakfast, and then I know I'm not necessarily going to get a dinner. So I'll tend to get a packet of meat, or I'll have some chicken leg, or I'll have some boiled eggs, and I take them, and they're a snack. And that just keeps me till about 6 o'clock, between 5 and 6 when I have my tea. And that's not a regular time because I live with family. And if they get in the kitchen first, I have to get out. I can't get in. So and I don't like it too early. So basically I'll have a tea. And then when I'm on my own and I'm not working, I'll not bother with breakfast, and I'll go probably till I'm hungry, which is probably around about 1 o'clock-ish, 12 o'clock, whatever. And then I'll have basically what would have been a breakfast. It's always a cooked breakfast. It could be a gluten-free sausage or 2. It can be 4 or 5 slices of bacon. I'm a pig. I eat the lot, me. There's never any waste. There'll be about 3 or 4 large eggs. I always have egg with my meals. You know, if I have steak, I like different meats on my plate. When I first started, it was Big Daddy's. I bought these Big Daddy steaks, and when I first put one on my plate, I thought, I can't believe I'm going to eat this, and I did. I ate the lot, and I had eggs with it. And now I'll have like a shoulder steak, pork shoulder steak, because I do like them, and I'll have a steak. There'll be something like an 8-ounce or so steak, or a 10-ounce steak, and then there'll be about 3 or 4 large eggs on it as well. There might be something else if I'm really ravenous, and basically that's it. And I'll tuck into the lot, and I always thank the animals that have given me the food. I always thank the animals that have, you know, I look at my plate and I literally say thank you. You know, and I'm not like God fearing or anything like that. I believe God is a source. He's all our consciousness. It's what we are. I'm a spirit. If I'm spiritual, if you like, and so I always thank the universe, and I regularly thank the universe for looking after me, because I feel something has guided me along on this path to get my health back. And the only fear I have about carnivore, to be honest, is what's happening in the world, what they're trying to do to us, stop our meat supply, and what have you. And that's the only fear about carnivore I have. But that's going to happen to everybody, whatever food you're eating. So yeah, so there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations. What
thank you.
what an experience you've been through.
Thank you.
So like the first question, I've got to ask. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
63. I'm
63.
64 in September. Yeah, I was a
Right.
1960 baby.
And you're running around trimming hedges and
Yeah.
digging
Yeah,
holes.
yeah, digging
Wow.
and what have you. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a struggle mentally more than physically, because mentally my head said I should be retired. Not that I would ever have probably do nothing, but mentally I should have retired. It should have been 60 and what have you. You know, so my head was always saying 60, and then when you hit your age, they've told you you're not retiring. You know, you got to keep working till you're 67. So that's what I've got to keep doing, and that bothers me, you know. But the way I look at it is, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I should make it, shouldn't I? You know, I should carry on.
Yeah. It sounds like the system there is the same as in Australia. They keep moving the goalposts about
Yeah,
age with retirement. Yeah.
I feel sorry for the next lot. I find another thing is that some of the things I have or had, I mean, I don't believe I've cured it. I believe it's stopped progressing, and the inflammation's gone. That's what it is. And a lot of the issues that we have are inflammation. The food's causing it. And so I don't think you can actually, I think if you just go back to what you was doing previously, you'll get it all back. Everything will come back. There's no doubt about it, because all you've done is stopped it growing, if you like. But I see a lot of some of my brothers and sisters, because I come from a family of 10 children. And so I see a few of them have got many of the issues I've had, and what have you. And I've told them, when I first started the gluten thing, I had a couple of them teasing me, because obviously I wasn't. When my mum would say, "Do you want a sandwich?" They would be having a sandwich with a slice of ham in. I'd get a pile of ham. And they're making fun of me, and I'm the one laughing, really. I ain't got a filler to stuff my belly and make it bloated. I didn't think I had IBS when I read the sort of the symptoms. And actually, when I actually look back and think about the things, I think I had different words for the symptoms. You know, I was always observant. I always had a bloated belly. I always had colic. Ever since I was a kid, I had the most awful colic. And that would have been to do with the milk, and it would have been to do with the glutens as well. And you know, so when I look back at some of the things, I used to have backache, and if I ate brown bread, I got backache, you know, and things like that. And it took me a bit to click. And I think it was the no sugar journey which really got me on the right path, because that was the beginning where I started appreciating that we were told a lot of lies. I don't know how intentional some of the lies are, or whether they're lies simply that they're not intentional and they're just whatever. But I think there is a lot of deceit that's come out really from studies when you start paying attention to some of the information that's been put out. And you tend to listen what's on the media, like they're telling you, oh, you need started off with about 5 veggies and fruit a day, and then they turned it into 10. And when you realize it, there's no evidence. They're just spilling off this rubbish, telling you all this rubbish, and it's from nowhere. Where's it from? No, nowhere at all. And my mum, I had one friend. I have lots of friends, but I had a friend. She's dead now, bless her. But I'd talked to her about food and about what I was doing, and she had like bone on bone pain on her knee and things like that. And one day I went to work to her garden, because I did her garden as well. And she was in bits, and she said, Nita, look at this. And it was a brown bread loaf. She said, I had a slice of this last night, she said, and I haven't slept all night. She was in bits. She said, I hadn't slept all night and I was in agony. And she says, so she turned to white bread instead. But basically, when I read the thing, it was mother of all glutens, if you like, mother of them all. And then I explained things to my mum, and she had psoriasis for a lot of years in her hair, and she used to have special shampoo. And anyway, she took her bread out. She didn't, and she changed a few things, but not carnivore as such. But she eats a lot of fish and she eats eggs and things. And her psoriasis went away after a bit. And where she was paying attention to things a bit more for a while, her psoriasis went away. Her breathing got better because she has one of these heart, is it fibula thing? It's where it changes its beat a little bit. And so she had that, and she was always a little bit breathless. And she'd had an operation on her hip after a fall, but she was walking better. But then she started going back, and she was losing weight. She lost enough weight to take 2 links out of her watch, you know, have a watch changed on her wrist. So she lost a bit of weight as well. And she's quite a chunky woman. And but then I think things started creeping in a bit again. And then the next breath, oh, it's got nothing to do with food. There's a mindset that people can't get their head round that it's to do with food. You know, it can't be, you know, even though for her, she'd actually got rid of the psoriasis and she was breathing better and walking a little bit better. But it can't be food. And so, and that gives them an excuse then to go backwards, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
It's almost like the subconscious can't deal with the thought that, you know, your whole life has been pushing you in the wrong direction regarding nutrition, and so you just like oblivious to stuff.
Well, we've been like this. It's been coming in so many different directions. The media, the magazines. You've got all these TV celebrities cooking, competitions cooking, and everywhere you go, you're lit up with all the colours and of the rainbow, if you like, all that rubbish. And then we've got the Christmas, and everybody's collecting their hampers for Christmas, all their goodies and everything. And our heads are lit up like Christmas trees. Never mind the living room, you know, and all the lights. But our heads are lit up, you know, and our eyes are sparkling because there's that much goodies. And we've been taught ever since we was little, our first little bit of chocolate stuck in our faces, melting and dribbling down our chins. That's what we've been taught. It's all we know, you know. So I think it's not people's fault. It's all we know. It's all we've been taught, and like you say, it's our subconscious. There's more than one of us. Like I say, almost a conversation with the chocolate. Why did you do that, Nita? Oh, well, I don't know. It's like there was a part of me said, I'm having that chocolate. And there was this sensible part of me saying, stop it. You're not. Why did you go and do it? And I'm like, I don't know. My son, when I told him about the milk and cheese, that it had this effect on me, he stopped the cheese and he admitted straight away that he noticed after he stopped the cheese that he was different. And he loses weight quite a lot because he money and food and things and what have you. So anyway, on and off he'll drink milk, but he admits at times it doesn't agree with him, but he does it because he wants to try and put weight on and things. What have you, because he's chunky, he's muscly when he's at his best, and then he has periods where he's not at his best. But unfortunately, he's still doing that. But he stopped the cheese, and he does try. He listens to me. He does try to incorporate more meat in his diet when he can get it, and and he suffers depression and anxiety, and so does the other one. I've never had depression or anything. Only it's more a case of despair. When I was in all that pain, it was despair. It wasn't depression. Like with my eye, when I said it was despair, it's like it's helplessness. It's what what I can't do anything. What can I do? And so I've never really been a depression type, except I get sad with the winter. I struggle to motivate myself with this winter. It's been sunny a couple of days and it kicks me out of bed and has me doing things. But when it's grey, I can't stand it because I like to be outside and I like the sun out and get on with it. And I like reasons to be cheerful, if you like. And it's the weather and stuff that has my reasons to be cheerful. But I am a happy type of person. But I have noticed something else, though. Even though I'm not a depressed type, there is something. It's almost like there's something behind me that has a calmness. It's in my head. There's a calmness. I mean, I've probably always had an edge of anxiety or a nervous thing or something, because whenever you're about to go out the door, I have to go to toilet, and I probably have to run 2 or 3 times before I go, and then I'm fine. And so, and same as if I had to do a presentation or something, or like an exam, I don't like being tested. I would be nervous and shaking probably for the first 20 minutes, and then I'm in it, and then it's nearly over. And so, but what I notice is there's this, it's almost like a subconscious calmness behind me, but it's in me, and it's it's sort of literally around me, almost like a halo around me. And that's something I don't recall ever having that. And I'm not generally a stressed out. Sometimes I can be stressed. Other people can stress me a bit because they tend to be wanting or whatever. But I'm not particularly I don't think I'm a stressed out person. But if I get a bit uppity or annoyed with something, I don't take. I mean, within a few moments, I'm that's the end. I'm calmed down, probably faster than I would have been. I think that's the thing, is there's a calmness, and something sort of has me wind down faster than I would have normally been. Settle back, almost like a bubbling brook, and then it's not bubbling anymore afterwards. Just like comes up every simmer, a bit like my induction plate. You click it on and on the simmer bit, and it's going up, and then suddenly you see it going up and all bubbling, and then it suddenly goes back down and it's still for a moment, and it goes back almost like a pulse. And so for me, it's like that's my thingy is a pulse. So yeah, so that's basically it, really. I still follow all the different doctors and Zoe Aracum, Ben Bickman, all of those as well, everybody, because there's nobody will talk about diet and food. And the moment I say anything, it's like they don't want to know me. They don't want to know. Shut up, Nita. And it don't matter where I go and family, if I say anything, they don't want to know. They see the changes in me. A lot of the illness they didn't know I had because I didn't complain about it. I listened to everybody else moaning and complaining about their pains, but I kept mine quiet because of my work. I never went to a doctor about arthritis or anything, even though I had arthritis everywhere. I never went to a doctor when I was hurting. I tended to self-medicate, which obviously has made things worse. Ibuprofen and paracetamol every morning in the morning before I went to work. About 10 minutes before work, I would self-medicate, and probably 2 o'clock, if I was needing it, I would do it again. And that's how I was living basically. But I never discussed my pains with people, and I didn't see myself as a sickie either, because I always felt I'm going to manage it. I can, whatever it is, I'm going to manage it. I'm not running to the doctors. I'm not having sickie put on me work notes so that they're looking at me for the future thinking, oh, she's not going to be here for, doing much. She's going to be a bit useless. I'd never let anybody know. I just got on with it. I only had, I think, one customer I let know that I was having issues, and that was the one who said about the operation on the back. And so I'm not looking back, but I'm using all the videos, your videos, listening to anecdotal things, more, not just reinforcement that I'm doing right, because I absolutely 100% know what we're all doing is right. And it's more about having a friend, support, because there's nobody. Even when you see some people and they're in the worst state, and like I've got a friend, she's in the most worst state. She's on morphine now. But they won't listen. They listen, but they can't motivate themselves to do it. And they can't totally believe it, even though they've seen me, and it's sad really, but I use all the videos and all the different anecdotal things as almost as a friend, because I haven't got anybody as a friend that I can discuss this stuff with properly. Oh, there was one day the other day though, I had my hair cut. I was looking like a shaggy sheepdog, and I needed it cutting, and I was chatting away to her, and I hadn't really properly talked to her for years. She used to be my hairdresser when I was younger, and I saw her when I was gardening one day, and I started telling her stuff, and she said her husband has just been told he's pre-diabetic, and I said to her, well, if he's pre-diabetic, he's actually diabetic. I says they're very slow in this country. I says, and I know somebody else who they were a bit slow with, and it's worse than that now for her. Anyway, the thing was, I told her all this stuff, all about the carnivore and everything else. And she said, do you know, Nita, she said, I totally get it, because her husband had been and paid, and she went with him to a dietitian in London. And this dietitian had told him all this sort of stuff, lots of this sort of stuff. It was all ringing true to her ears because she'd heard it from somebody else. And so it's got her thinking. And if you can make a little bit of difference to somebody, I think, well, you've not to stop telling them. You've got to keep telling them, even if they're annoyed with you. Not too much, you've got to know when to pull back. But if you just let them know sometimes, and maybe eventually when they've suffered enough, because that's what it's about, you've got to suffer enough. If you don't suffer, that's how I look at them as well, by the way. They fob me off. And I think, well, you haven't suffered enough. I don't say it well, my mum knows I've said it, because I've said it. And my mum knows, because occasionally she'll say, yeah, well, we haven't suffered enough. she's clicked that I look at her and think, well, you haven't suffered enough. When you have, you'll say, how can I get out of this? I can't face this anymore. I want to die. And so they haven't, You know, I think they like labels. And the last thing I had this thought is, we go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, you've got this, you've got IBS, oh, you've got arthritis. Do you know, it's the biggest load of bull. It's absolute rubbish. Every single thing they've stuck a label on to give you a medicine for is a symptom. They're all symptoms. They're not what's wrong with you. They're all symptoms, and they're all symptoms of one underlying issue, what we're eating. And that is it. It's what we're eating. Unless you've got a broken a leg or, you know, your head's fallen off, literally. But basically, it's what we're eating. And that is the label, our food. And I think there should only be one label when you're ill, and it's arthritis and all these type of things. It's your food. It's that should be the first question. And the other thing is, every doctor, osteopath, the chiropractor, all thought I was on a good diet. When I described what I was eating, because I was eating a lot of fresh veg, all those fruits and things like that, all that rubbish, all of them said I was on a good diet.
Keep it up. Good job.
Thank you very much, Dave. Yeah,
that's it. That's it. They're all thinking, "Oh, you're doing awesome. You're doing awesome." Meanwhile, you're poisoning yourself.
You are. I saw you jumping down the stairs, showing how you couldn't do that before, and then you're bouncing down the stairs. It makes you want to move, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, the pain restricts you, doesn't it? It mentally and physically restricts you, and it stops you thinking and making decisions even that you probably would make. I tell you what I thought about the other day, and it really hit me. I thought Charles Dickens knew. Charles Dickens, he knew, because Oliver, when he was in the workhouse, remember Oliver Twist? He was in that workhouse, right? And somewhere he'd been given meat. I remember this. The boy went and asked, he goes up to Bumble and he asks for, please, sir, can I have some more? Right? Of course, he gets a whooping, doesn't he? And then Bumble has this argument. He's furious, and he says, you've given the boy, this woman admits he got some meat. You've given the boy meat. That's what's done it. Yeah, it made him brave. It made him strong all of a sudden. Do you know what I mean? It made him realise he should have had meat.
It's what we've known all along.
Yeah, Charles Dickens knew it. He gave him meat. He said it. You know, that's what did it.
So, Anita, do you have a Facebook or a YouTube or an Instagram if people want to reach out to you?
No, I don't do any of those. I just have my email, basically. So, no. I mean, I've said sometime I've thought about doing a podcast, you know, not as a business or anything, more about like trying to spread, because the more of us that come out with this, the more chance we've got of getting it out and about, and to getting people to see some wisdom. You know, it's not that they're not wise or anything. It's just they're being fooled, and they're being fooled. It's a psyops. It's literally a psyops. Like the thingy, you know, dibby jab thing. It's all a big psyops, and I think that's what life is anyway. There's so many lies in different ways, and once you realise, and I think food was the biggest eye opener for me for about life anyway, about all the other things that's not so truthful. You know, it's just perverted knowledge, isn't it? Diverted knowledge. Yeah,
definitely,
for their own wealth and means. A lot of it. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you.
Well, Anita, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. You know, it's very nice, and I enjoy your videos and what have you, and I shall keep watching them.